The beginning of the rebellion. In the year 2456, Earth was no longer the thriving planet it had once been. Years of invasion and occupation by the Vakari, an alien race that valued power above all else, had left the planet scared and divided. The Vakari saw Earth as nothing more than a resource, its people nothing more than tools to further their galactic expansion. Cities had crumbled, the air had thickened with the toxins from warfare, and humanity's once thriving nations had been reduced to scattered, desperate pockets of resistance. Among the ruins, the Zoran Empire, a formidable but reclusive alien faction, had aligned themselves with a few brave humans. The Zorans were no strangers to the Vakari's dominance. Their own war for survival had pushed them to the fringes of the galaxy. When they learned that Earth was caught between two warring alien powers, they decided to intervene, not out of kindness, but out of necessity. Humanity's struggle mirrored their own. And in that struggle, the Zorans saw a potential ally. At the heart of this burgeoning rebellion was Captain Lily Moore, a former military strategist turned leader of the Zoran human resistance. Lily had once been a top officer in the United Earth Defense Forces, but when the invasion came, she saw the entire human military collapse under the might of the Vakari. Now, leading a ragtag group of survivors, Lily had become a symbol of hope for those who refused to be silenced. The night was unusually quiet as Lily and her team prepared for their most critical mission yet. The Resistance had learned of a secret Vakari base, buried deep beneath the surface of the planet, where they were developing a weapon that could wipe out entire cities in a single strike. This weapon could tip the balance of power in favor of the Vakari and extinguish what little hope humanity had left. The time to act was now. Lily paced around the command center, checking her gear for the 100th time. Her mind raced with the weight of the mission. If they were successful, they could cripple the Vakari's operations and buy humanity more time to regroup. But failure wasn't an option. If they failed, the planet would be lost forever. "You ready, Captain?" Sergeant Quinn, her most trusted officer, asked, his voice steady but tinged with a hint of nervousness. Lily turned to face him, nodding. "Always." The mission was simple: infiltrate the Vakari base, steal the data on their new weapon, and get out. But simple was never easy when it came to the Vakari. They were everywhere, watching every movement, listening for every sound. The team would have to be quick, quiet, and most importantly, they would have to rely on each other. The small, dilapidated transport ship that would carry them to the Vakari base was waiting just outside the abandoned building they had been using as their operations center. The air was thick with tension, but Lily kept her composure. She couldn't afford to show fear, not now. Her team needed her to lead them through the darkness. As they boarded the ship, the familiar hum of the engine filled the air. The doors sealed shut, and the small craft took off into the night sky, heading toward the heart of enemy territory. The only light came from the glow of the stars and the flickering control panels within the ship. Lily glanced at the faces of her team. Each one was a testament to humanity's unyielding will. There was Quinn, the sharpshooter who had lost his entire family in the first wave of the invasion. Then there was Hannah, a former scientist who had turned to the Resistance when the Vakari destroyed her research facility. And finally, Mark, the youngest member of the team, who had grown up in the midst of the war and was determined to fight for a future he had never known. As the ship neared the Vakari compound, Lily's pulse quickened. They were getting closer, and every moment brought them closer to danger. But she couldn't afford to think about what might happen if they were caught. The mission came first. The ship descended silently, landing just outside the perimeter of the compound. The team quickly disembarked, moving through the dense forest that surrounded the facility. They were met by an eerie silence, the kind that comes just before a storm. Lily signaled for her team to spread out, their footsteps muffled by the soft ground. They had been training for this moment for years, and now it was time to put everything into action. As they neared the entrance to the Vakari base, Lily's heart raced. The compound loomed ahead, its towering spires reaching toward the sky like jagged fingers. Vekhari soldiers patrolled the perimeter, their sleek black armor blending into the shadows. Every guard was a potential threat, but Lily and her team moved with practiced precision, using the shadows to their advantage. They had to reach the control room, located in the heart of the compound, before they could extract the data. But as they approached the main gate, something unexpected happened. A soft, rustling sound came from the nearby trees. A pair of Vekhari guards stepped into view, their alien eyes scanning the area. Lily's instincts kicked in immediately. "Move, now," she whispered urgently. The team scattered, slipping into the cover of darkness as the guards advanced. Lily's mind raced. If they were spotted now, the entire mission would be compromised. She needed to think fast. With a swift motion, she signaled Mark, who was positioned on her right. Without a word, he moved forward, his training evident in the way he silently took down one of the guards with a precise strike. The other guard spun around, only to be met by Sergeant Quinn, who used his blaster to disable the Vekhari's weapon systems. It had been a close call, but they had made it past the first obstacle. Lily's breathing was steady, but she knew this was only the beginning. The mission was far from over, and every step would bring them closer to the heart of the enemy's stronghold. With her team by her side, Captain Lily Moore led the charge, their hearts and minds united in a single cause: to free Earth from the chains of its alien overlords. The fate of the planet rested on their shoulders, and there was no turning back. Unlikely allies. The night was still, but the weight of the mission pressed down on Captain Lily Moore's shoulders like an invisible force. The team had moved swiftly through the dense jungle surrounding the Vekhari base, but the hard part was yet to come. As they reached the heavily guarded entrance, her mind raced. Time was running out. The Vekhari were always watching, and they couldn't afford to be discovered. Lily's team moved with the silent precision of shadows, each member keenly aware of the stakes. Their goal was to infiltrate the facility, obtain the data on the new weapon, and get out before the Vekhari could react. But as they approached the fortified walls of the compound, something felt off. The usual hum of energy shields and the faint glow of alien lights had been replaced with a strange, unsettling silence. "We're not alone," Lily whispered, her eyes scanning the area. Her instincts had never been wrong, and tonight was no exception. Something about the atmosphere had shifted. Before anyone could respond, the ground beneath their feet trembled, and the trees around them shook violently. A low, resonating hum filled the air, vibrating through their bones. The team instinctively dropped to a crouch, weapons raised. Lily signaled for the team to split. "Move out. Stay in the shadows." They did not have to wait long. Out of the depths of the forest, a small group of alien figures appeared. Tall, angular creatures with pale, translucent skin that shimmered faintly under the light of the twin moons. Their eyes glowed an eerie shade of blue, and their movements were fluid, almost like they were gliding across the earth. Lily's mind immediately ran through the possibilities. The Zorans. They had to be. The Zoran Empire, though cautious, had quietly supported humanity's resistance to the Vekhari. It wasn't the first time they had made their presence known, but these Zorans were different. There was an air of urgency around them, as if they knew something the humans didn't. One of the Zorans, their leader by the look of it, stepped forward. His long silver hair caught the moonlight as he addressed Lily in a voice that sounded like a melody of alien tones, but oddly familiar. "We've been waiting for you, Captain Moore," the Zoran leader said, his voice thick with a foreign accent. "Your mission is too important to fail. We offer you assistance." Lily's pulse quickened. She had heard whispers of the Zorans' involvement in the resistance, but this direct encounter was unexpected. Their help could tip the balance in their favor, but trusting aliens, especially the Zorans, wasn't something she was ready to do lightly. They had their own agenda, and in this war, there was no such thing as a completely selfless ally. "I don't need your help," Lily replied firmly, though she couldn't hide the wariness in her voice. "We can handle it ourselves." The Zoran's lips curved into a knowing smile. "We are not offering assistance for free. There is something we need, something you have. The weapon you seek to destroy. It is not just a tool of destruction. It is a key to something much greater. A weapon that could decide the fate of both our races." Lily narrowed her eyes, weighing his words. Her mission had always been about stopping the Valkyrie from using this weapon to dominate Earth, but this new development caught her off guard. What was this Zoran talking about? And why was he so insistent on their involvement? "Fine," Lily said after a long pause. "But if you're lying to me, I won't hesitate to take you down." The Zoran leader's smile only deepened. "Then we have an understanding." With the uneasy alliance made, Lily led her team toward the heart of the Valkyrie compound. The Zorans had proven themselves useful, but trust was something that would take time. They moved swiftly, their silent footsteps blending into the shadows as they approached the compound's security perimeter. Once inside, the true scale of the Valkyrie base became clear. It wasn't just a facility. It was a fortress, a complex of towering structures that stretched deep underground. Lily's team split off into pairs, each taking a different route to avoid detection. The Zorans provided cover, disabling security systems and drawing guards away from their path. Lily's heart raced as she moved toward the central control room. Every step took them deeper into enemy territory, and every corner they turned brought them closer to the heart of the weapon. The Resistance's mission was to steal the data and destroy the weapon, but as they got closer to the heart of the compound, the significance of their objective grew clearer. This was no ordinary weapon. It was a key, a technological marvel capable of far more than destruction. The Zoran leader's words echoed in Lily's mind. They were right about one thing: the stakes were higher than she had realized. The future of both humans and aliens rested on what they found here. As they reached the final level of the compound, Lily motioned for her team to halt. They were nearing the control room, and the tension in the air was thick. The facility's security systems had become increasingly sophisticated, and the presence of Valkyrie soldiers grew stronger. Lily's heart pounded in her chest. The final push was upon them. Every move, every decision counted. But as she looked at her team, at the Zorans, who stood beside them despite the distance between their species, she knew one thing was certain: humanity would not go down without a fight. She turned to Mark, who had been silently scanning the area. "You ready?" she asked, her voice steady despite the chaos in her mind. Mark nodded, his eyes focused. "Always." With a final glance at the Zoran leader, Lily moved forward, the fate of Earth and its people hanging in the balance. This mission was not just about survival. It was about reclaiming the future. The doors to the control room opened, and what awaited them on the other side would change everything. The hidden truth. The doors to the control room opened with a soft hiss, revealing a vast chamber filled with rows of advanced consoles, pulsating with alien energy. The room was dimly lit, the walls lined with sleek metallic surfaces that seemed to absorb the light. At the center of the room stood a massive holographic projection, displaying intricate blueprints and data feeds that Lily couldn't quite comprehend. But one thing was certain: the weapon was real. It was more than just a weapon. It was a nexus of alien technology, one that could shape the fate of entire galaxies. Lily and her team moved swiftly, taking their positions around the perimeter of the room. The Zorans were already at work, quietly disabling the security systems and securing the entrance. The tension in the air was palpable. Every movement was calculated, every step deliberate. They couldn't afford any mistakes now. "Begin the data extraction," Lily whispered to Mark, who was already working with the terminal. His fingers danced across the alien controls with ease, but Lily could see the concentration in his eyes. He was good, but even he could feel the weight of the moment. If they were caught now, the mission would fail, and all their efforts would have been for nothing. The screens flickered as Mark bypassed several layers of security protocols, his mind focused solely on the task at hand. Time seemed to stretch, each second feeling like an eternity. The only sounds were the hum of the alien systems and the quiet breathing of her team. But Lily's senses were heightened, her awareness sharp. She could feel the presence of someone, beyond the door. She glanced toward the Zoran leader, who stood near the back of the room, his eyes scanning the perimeter. His expression was unreadable, but Lily didn't trust him completely. He had his own agenda, and the fact that he had insisted on joining them felt like a warning. She couldn't shake the feeling that there was more to this mission than they had been told. "Got it," Mark finally said, his voice cutting through the tension. "I've extracted the data. We need to leave now." Lily's breath caught in her throat. The data they had come for was in their hands, but as she turned to signal her team, the doors behind them slammed shut with a deafening clang. The room was plunged into darkness, and the hum of the alien systems faltered, then stopped. A voice echoed through the room, a cold, mechanical voice that sent a chill down Lily's spine. "Security breach detected. Initiating lockdown." The air was thick with the sound of alien technology activating. The walls vibrated as energy shields flared to life, surrounding the room in an impenetrable barrier. Lily's heart raced. They were trapped. "Get to cover," she shouted, pushing her team into action. The Zorans moved quickly, their sleek forms vanishing into the shadows as they sought shelter behind consoles and pillars. But Lily couldn't shake the feeling that this was no ordinary lockdown. It was too precise, too deliberate. Then the holographic projection flickered to life again, this time showing a face Lily recognized. It was the Zoran leader, but the expression on his face was different now. His eyes glowed with an unnatural intensity, and his features were twisted in a way that made Lily's blood run cold. "I see you've discovered the truth," the Zoran leader's voice echoed, now more sinister than before. "It's too late to stop what has already begun." Lily's mind raced. "What are you talking about?" she demanded, her hand instinctively moving to the blaster at her side. "You promised us you were on our side." The Zoran leader's smile widened. "I never said I was on your side, Captain Moore. I am on the side of the Zoran Empire. And now that we have what we need, it's time to finish what we started." The hologram flickered again, and Lily saw the true nature of the weapon. It wasn't just a tool for destruction. It was a vessel, a living, breathing organism capable of channeling and amplifying energy on an unimaginable scale. It was alive, and it had been waiting for someone to activate it. Lily's heart pounded in her chest. The Zorans hadn't come to help them. They had come to take control of the weapon for themselves. "Activate the weapon," the Zoran leader commanded, his voice now filled with dark satisfaction. "The Vicari may think they control it, but we will show them true power." "No," Lily shouted, stepping forward. "We won't let you use it." The room exploded into action. The Zorans leaped from their cover, charging toward the central console. But Lily was faster. She raised her blaster and fired, sending one of the Zorans crashing into the wall. The rest of the team followed suit, opening fire on their supposed allies. The air was thick with blaster fire and the sound of alien technology humming to life. In the chaos, Lily's eyes never left the Zoran leader. He had orchestrated this entire mission, using them as pawns in his plan to seize control of the weapon. But he hadn't accounted for one thing: the resolve of humanity. "Mark, can you shut it down?" Lily shouted, her voice cutting through the noise. Mark nodded, his fingers flying across the terminal once more. The energy shields around the room flickered and buzzed as he attempted to override the Zoran systems. Sweat poured down his face as the pressure mounted. Time was running out. The Zoran leader lunged toward them, his eyes glowing with fury. "You don't understand. You never will. The weapon will change everything." But Lily wasn't listening. She aimed her blaster directly at him, her hand steady despite the chaos surrounding her. "Not today," she said coldly. With a sharp crack, The Zoran leader collapsed, his body crumpling to the floor in a heap. But the victory was short-lived. The weapon had already begun to activate. The entire room trembled, and a massive energy pulse shot upward, threatening to tear the facility apart. "Mark!" Lily shouted again, her voice desperate. Mark's fingers hovered over the controls. "I'm trying. It's too powerful. I need more time." The room was falling apart, and Lily knew that their only hope was to disable the weapon before it could reach full power. But with the Zorans closing in and the Vicari forces likely already on their way, they had no time to waste. "Everyone, fall back," Lily ordered. "Get to the extraction point." Now, the team moved quickly, but the weapon's power continued to build, the walls around them shaking as the pulse grew stronger. It wasn't just a weapon. It was a beacon, a signal that could alert the entire galaxy. If they didn't stop it, every alien faction would know Earth's location. With a final, desperate push, Lily and her team broke free from the control room. But the battle was far from over. The weapon's activation had set off a chain of events that could not be undone. And as they fled into the night, Lily realized the truth. The war for Earth was only just beginning. The rising storm. The night air was thick with the scent of burning fuel and the distant rumble of impending disaster. As Lily Moore and her team sprinted through the Vicari compound's hallways, the building around them seemed to tremble in response to the weapon's power surge. The facility's lights flickered ominously, casting long shadows on the walls as they rushed toward their extraction point. Lily's mind raced. The Zorans, once allies, had revealed their true intentions. They had used the resistance to achieve their own ends, manipulating the entire mission to gain control of the weapon. But now that the weapon was activated, its power was beyond anything she had anticipated. The only thing more terrifying than the alien technology was the realization that there was no way to stop it, not without a fight that would cost them everything. As they reached the compound's exit, a sudden blast shook the ground beneath them, sending them sprawling. Lily's head slammed against the cold floor, the impact dizzying her for a moment. Through the haze of confusion, she could hear the sounds of alarms blaring, the Vicari forces closing in on their position. "Captain, we need to move," Sergeant Quinn shouted, pulling her to her feet. Lily nodded, her vision still blurred, but her resolve unshaken. "We don't stop. We get to that ship and get the hell off this rock." With Quinn's help, Lily regained her bearings. The sound of heavy boots echoing down the hallway told her that the Vicari were already on their trail. Time was running out. The compound was no longer just a battleground. It was becoming a death trap. Every second they spent here was one step closer to being trapped inside, with no way out. Mark was already ahead of them, working furiously to hack into the Vicari's communication systems. He was fast, but even he could feel the pressure mounting. The weapon's pulse was growing stronger, and if they didn't leave soon, they would all be caught in its catastrophic wake. Lily's eyes darted to the ceiling. The vents above them hummed with energy, and she could see a faint blue glow pulsing from within. The weapon wasn't just a tool of destruction. It was a beacon, calling to something. The question was, what was it calling? "We're almost there," Mark called out from the front, his voice tinged with exhaustion. "The ship's just ahead. We have to move now, or we won't make it." The sound of distant gunfire echoed through the hallways. The Vicari were closing in on them, and it wouldn't be long before they would have to fight their way out. Lily motioned for the team to pick up the pace. "Stay sharp," she said, her voice steady despite the chaos unfolding around them. "We don't stop until we're off this planet." The group sprinted through the dimly lit corridors, dodging Vicari soldiers who patrolled the area. Every step was a gamble. One wrong move, and they would be caught. But Lily had learned long ago that survival depended on more than just skill. It was about staying one step ahead of the enemy, predicting their moves before they made them. As they neared the extraction point, the sky outside the compound lit up with the faint glow of ships rising into the air. The Vicari were preparing for something big. They could feel it in the air. This wasn't just a military response. This was a full-scale operation, a last-ditch effort to maintain control. Lily's mind raced, but she kept her focus. The ship was close, and so was their only chance to escape. If they could get off the planet and report back to the Resistance, they might still have a chance at stopping the weapon before it could do irreversible damage. But that wasn't their only problem. The Zorans hadn't finished their mission. They still had the data, and now, more than ever, Lily knew that there was more to this than just the weapon. The Zoran leader's cryptic words echoed in her mind. The weapon will change everything. But what did he mean by that? And why was it so important to them? Before she could process any more thoughts, a barrage of blaster fire erupted around them. They were under attack. Lily snapped into action, pushing Mark to the side, and raising her own weapon in defense. The Vicari soldiers were closing in fast, and they were armed to the teeth. Sergeant Quinn took a defensive position, firing back with precision. The team's training kicked in, and they moved with purpose, weaving through cover as they fought their way toward the ship. "Captain, we need to move," Hannah shouted, her voice strained as she fired at an advancing soldier. "The Vicari are bringing in reinforcements." Lily shot a glance toward the ship. It was so close, yet it felt like it was miles away. The firestorm around them intensified, the air charged with the sounds of battle. They couldn't stop now. If they hesitated, they wouldn't make it. "Quinn, cover the rear," Lily shouted, her eyes scanning the battlefield. "Mark, get to the ship and start it up." The team moved with practiced efficiency, their bodies in sync as they fought through the oncoming Vicari forces. Quinn provided cover fire, his shots precise as he took down 2 soldiers in quick succession. Hannah's agility allowed her to dodge and weave through the chaos, disarming another soldier before he could react. Mark, on the other hand, was already at the ship's controls, working furiously to get the engines running. Lily, as always, kept her focus. Her mind wasn't just on the present. She was thinking ahead, analyzing every move the Vicari were making. They had no time to waste. The weapon was still active, and with each passing minute, the danger it posed grew stronger. As the last Vicari soldier fell to the ground, Lily sprinted toward the ship. She could hear the hum of the engines coming to life as Mark successfully powered up the vessel. "Everyone on board now," she yelled. The team rushed to the ship, scrambling up the ramp and into the safety of the hull. Once they were inside, Lily turned to the pilot's seat and took a deep breath. The sky above them was filled with the sounds of distant explosions, but they had no time to dwell on the chaos. They had made it out, but the war was far from over. As the ship lifted off and soared into the darkened sky, Lily's mind raced. The weapon, the Zorans, the Vicari, it was all connected. And now, with the weapon fully activated, they would have to prepare for the next phase of the conflict. The storm had only just begun. Shattered alliances. The ship's engines hummed steadily as Lily Moore sat in the cockpit, her eyes fixed on the stars outside. The silence within the vessel was a welcome respite from the chaos they had just escaped. The Vicari compound was now behind them, a smoldering wreckage that was soon to become just another chapter in humanity's fight for survival. But despite their narrow escape, Lily couldn't shake the feeling that they had just stepped into a much larger web of danger. She glanced over her shoulder, her gaze sweeping over the tired but resolute faces of her team. Mark, the young technician who had grown into a skilled strategist under pressure, sat with his fingers poised over the controls. He was still processing the gravity of what they had learned about the weapon. The Zorans had been lying to them from the start, and now their true intentions were clear. They didn't just want the weapon. They wanted control over Earth itself. The data they had stolen from the Vicari base wasn't just about the weapon. It was about a much deeper power struggle that stretched across galaxies. Lily had known from the beginning that Earth was a pawn in a game far beyond their comprehension, but now the stakes had grown even higher. The Zorans had shown their hand, and the humans who had trusted them were left to pick up the pieces. "Captain," Mark's voice broke through her thoughts. "I've analyzed the data we got. The weapon, it's not just a super weapon. It's a gate, a conduit designed to link different parts of the galaxy. The Vekari and the Zorans are fighting over it because it could allow them to control entire sectors of space, to jump from one place to another in an instant." Lily's heart skipped a beat as the implications of Mark's words sank in. A gate, a device capable of instantaneous travel across vast stretches of space. Whoever controlled the gate could control the flow of entire worlds, resources, and even the power to rewrite the laws of intergalactic diplomacy. "How long before it's fully operational?" Lily asked, her voice low. Mark hesitated, tapping furiously at the console. "It's already reaching full power. We're talking hours, maybe less. The signal we detected, it's calling to something or someone. The activation could attract attention from every faction in the galaxy. If the Vakarian Zorans don't act fast, someone else will." Lily's mind raced. They had no time to waste. Earth's fate wasn't just at stake. It was part of a larger galactic conflict that could engulf entire star systems. The lines between ally and enemy had become impossible to discern. "We need to get this information back to the Resistance, warn them about the Zorans and the weapon," Lily said, her resolve hardening. "We can't afford to trust anyone, not even the Zorans. They've been playing both sides, and we're caught in the middle." The ship hummed as it entered hyperspace, leaving behind the ravaged world they had fought so hard to escape. Lily's thoughts kept returning to the Zoran leader, who had so casually revealed his true agenda. What was the Zoran Empire planning? And why was Earth so critical to their grand scheme? "Captain," Sergeant Quinn spoke up from the rear of the cabin, his voice gruff. "Are we going to confront the Zorans directly? They've got the weapon, and if we let them keep it, everything we fought for will be wiped out." Lily's eyes met his, and for a brief moment, the weight of their situation was almost too much to bear. Quinn was right. The Zorans were no longer the distant, neutral players they had once thought them to be. They were enemies now, enemies with an agenda that could reshape the galaxy. And Lily had just become their primary target. "We're not going after the Zorans," Lily replied, her voice calm but firm. "Not yet. First, we need to warn the rest of humanity. The Resistance needs to know what we've found, and they need to start preparing for the worst. But we also need to find out who else might be after the weapon." Mark looked up from his terminal, a frown on his face. If the Zorans have activated the gate, it won't just be the Vakari coming. There are plenty of other factions out there, other races who would love to get their hands on this technology. The realization hit Lily hard. The war for Earth was no longer just a battle between the Vakari and the Zorans. It had evolved into something much darker, with unknown players entering the field. The weapon was a key to unlocking power beyond anything humanity had ever dreamed of. But with that power came the risk of total destruction. "Then we need to be smart about this," Lily said, a grim determination settling over her. "We have to play this carefully. If the Zorans or anyone else finds out we're coming for the weapon, they'll stop at nothing to eliminate us." Her mind raced as she formulated a plan. The Resistance would need time to organize, to prepare for the coming storm. They would need more than just information. They would need weapons, allies, and the resources to face a galactic-scale conflict. But what if they couldn't win? What if humanity was already outmatched, outgunned, and outclassed? No, she wouldn't entertain that thought. Humanity had been pushed to the brink before, and they had always found a way to fight back. This time would be no different. She would rally the remaining pockets of resistance, forge new alliances, and use every ounce of human ingenuity to stand against the oncoming storm. "Mark, start sending the data to the Resistance," Lily ordered. "Let them know everything we found. We don't have the luxury of being cautious anymore. We need to act fast, and we need to act together." As Mark worked to send the encrypted files to the scattered human factions, Lily turned her attention to the view outside the ship. The stars stretched out before them, an endless void that seemed to mock their tiny struggle. But she knew the truth. Humanity was far from weak. It was stronger than ever, and its resolve would burn bright in the face of whatever the universe could throw at them. The war for Earth had begun, but it wasn't just a war for survival anymore. It was a fight for control of the future itself. And Lily Moore was ready to lead her people into that fight. A new hope. As the ship soared through the vast expanse of space, Lily Moore stood by the observation window, her eyes scanning the swirling stars beyond. Her thoughts were a whirlwind of conflicting emotions: concern, determination, and an ever-growing sense of urgency. The weapon was activated, the stakes had escalated, and time was now their most precious commodity. But despite the pressure, Lily could feel a flicker of something else rising within her, a spark of hope. They weren't just fighting to survive anymore. They were fighting for something much bigger: the future of humanity. Earth's future was no longer defined by the Vakari or the Zorans. It was defined by the choices they made now, the alliances they forged, and the will to rise above everything that sought to destroy them. "We've sent out the message to the Resistance," Mark said, breaking Lily's reverie. He approached her, his face serious but with a hint of hope. "The encrypted data is secure. The Resistance leaders should have it by now." Lily nodded, though her mind was still racing. The message had been clear, but it was also a call to arms. They had uncovered the truth about the weapon, but the Resistance would need time to mobilize. Even if every faction of humanity united, they would still face overwhelming odds against the advanced alien forces. The Zorans weren't their only problem. If other factions discovered Earth's significance, the battle for control over the weapon would become a galactic bloodbath. "There's more to do," she said quietly. "The Resistance needs more than just information. We need resources. We need more allies." Quinn, who had been listening from the back of the cabin, spoke up. "You think we can trust anyone else after what the Zorans did?" Lily's gaze hardened. She understood his skepticism. The Zorans had once seemed like an ally, but their true nature had been exposed. Yet despite the betrayal, she knew that humanity couldn't afford to be consumed by distrust. To win this war, they would have to think strategically, find new allies, and make difficult choices. "We don't have the luxury of choosing who we trust," Lily said. "We need to be smart. Find the factions that stand to gain the most from keeping Earth safe. We can't fight this battle alone." As she spoke, a strange sense of clarity washed over her. For the first time since the war began, Lily understood something fundamental. Their struggle wasn't just about defeating the alien forces. It was about proving that humanity could shape its own destiny, no matter the odds. The Zorans had underestimated them. The Vakari had underestimated them. And now, as Lily surveyed her team, she could see the same fire in their eyes that she had seen in the faces of countless humans fighting for freedom. They were the embodiment of human resilience, and together, they would be the catalyst for change. Mark's voice brought her back to the present. "Captain, we've received a transmission. It's from an unknown source." Lily frowned. "Unknown? Who could it be?" "I'm not sure," Mark replied. "But it's encrypted. I'll patch it through." Moments later, the screen flickered to life, and a grainy image of a woman appeared. Her face was partially obscured by shadow, but there was no mistaking the seriousness in her eyes. "This is Commander Tara Gray of the Coalition Fleet." The woman's voice came through, firm and authoritative. "I've intercepted your transmission, Captain Moore. We know what you found, and we're in agreement. We've been monitoring the situation on Earth for some time. The Zorans are not the only threat you face." Lily's heart skipped a beat. The Coalition Fleet was a powerful force, one that had remained mostly neutral in the conflict between the Zorans and Vakari. If they were contacting her now, it could mean the beginning of a new alliance. "You've been watching us?" Lily asked, her voice tight with suspicion. Commander Gray's expression remained unreadable. "We've had eyes on Earth for years, Captain. The weapon you've uncovered is part of something much larger. The Vakari and the Zorans have both underestimated the true power they've stumbled upon. But there are others who will come for it if you don't act fast. Lily's mind raced. Could the coalition fleet be trusted? They weren't exactly allies of humanity, but they were a formidable force with the resources to help turn the tide of battle. This could be the opportunity they needed, but trusting another alien faction was a risk she couldn't take lightly. "We don't have time to waste," Lily replied, her voice steady. "What do you want from us?" Tara Gray leaned forward, her eyes locking onto Lily's. "We want your help to stop the weapon from falling into the wrong hands. The Coalition is offering an alliance, one that could secure your planet's future, but we need to work together. If we can get to the heart of the weapon before the Zorans and Vakari do, we might be able to disable it for good." Lily felt a weight settle on her chest. This wasn't just another fight for survival. It was a war for control of the future, a future that hung in the balance. The Coalition fleet's offer was a chance to shift the odds in humanity's favor, but it came with its own set of dangers. Lily took a deep breath, weighing her options. Every decision from this point on would have consequences, and every move they made would be scrutinized by enemies and allies alike. But the one thing she knew for sure was this: she couldn't let Earth fall into the hands of anyone who would use the weapon for their own gain. "Fine," she said, her voice resolute. "We'll join forces, but this doesn't mean we trust you. We're all in this together now. And if you betray us—" Tara Gray nodded, understanding the gravity of the situation. "I know, Captain. We're in this until the end." Lily turned away from the screen and looked at her team. They had crossed a line. The next phase of their mission would determine the fate of humanity. It wasn't just about surviving the alien invasion anymore. It was about taking control of their future and showing the universe that humanity was a force to be reckoned with. "We have an alliance," Lily said, her voice filled with determination. "But the real battle is just beginning." And with that, the ship set a new course toward the heart of the galaxy, where the true power of the weapon lay waiting. The future was uncertain, but one thing was certain: humanity would no longer be a passive player in this war. They would take the fight to the heart of the enemy and prove that they were willing to do whatever it took to secure their place in the stars.